Breast cancer didn't just change my body, it changed my consciousness. For a long time, I thought I had to stay in control, numb out, and keep everything together. Today, I want to share what happened when my body finally forced me to stop performing and coming back to myself. What looked like a crisis became a bridge to the 5D. That feeling of alignment, truth, and remembering I'm an extension of divine source energy. Welcome to the Divine Soul Podcast, a safe place devoted to helping lightworkers, starseeds, and seekers embody their multidimensionality during their earthly experience. Join me for practical tools, grounded rituals, and heart-centered guidance. I'm your guide, Aubrey Kim. This episode was one that I knew that needed to be told, but there was also part of me that was very much avoiding it because it is me being vulnerable. It is me sharing my experience, what it was like moving through breast cancer, not once, but twice before the age of 40, and how incredibly different both of them were. I feel like the collective is not ready for what I'm going to share and how I view things like dis-ease, especially breast cancer, in my own experience and what it does for someone. But it also depends on who you are as a person, where you are in your life. Do you think that everything's happening to you, or is everything happening for you? I want to talk about a couple concepts before I just start diving into this, because depending on where you are in your journey as a light worker, starseed, seeker, or maybe you don't identify as any of those, and maybe you were called to this because of breast cancer. When I talk about the 3D, I'm referring to the frequency and level of consciousness that is governed by the material things, like this microphone, my clothes that I'm wearing, this couch that I'm sitting on, time, as in like there's only 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I also refer to it as the ego seeking validation from everything outside of itself. I also believe that in the 3D, you believe you are your physical body. You live in a constant state of fight or flight, and it can be very overwhelming. You feel a lot of anger and fear and scarcity and lack and hatred, and you blame others. There is no ownership of your life. That is how I think of the way in which people live in the 3D. When I talk about the 4D, I think about it as the level of consciousness when you start to begin taking responsibility for your life. Things that you had always done or thought or believed no longer align, and you're in this place of, wait a second, what is this? Why does this not align with me? This feels really uncomfortable. This doesn't feel true to me anymore. It also is you learning that I'm more than just this body. This is just my vehicle for this short blink of an eye that we have in this lifetime. You start questioning why you're here, what's your purpose. Perhaps you no longer align with things like your job, your relationships, your friendships, the way you have a perspective on the world. It's when you start to learn how to play this game of life, and things just start switching in you, and you start to feel really, really uncomfortable in your life. I refer to the 5D, that this collective is shifting towards the new earth, if you will. It's a way of life. And I like to think of it as you start embodying your true nature as an extension of divine source energy. And you begin to live in a state of compassion and love and kindness and abundance and gratitude and alignment and truth and wholeness. And you have an outlook that everything is happening for you, not to you. You're asking, what are the lessons that I can learn from what I'm receiving from divine right now, or this interaction with someone? You understand that people are a reflection of you, and that we are all connected. This episode is probably going to ruffle some feathers. I also like to think of it as planting a seed for other people. And like I said in the beginning, this episode I was avoiding. Even today, I was sitting in my car waiting to get an oil change, and I found myself getting onto my phone to switch up the episode. And, oh, this is going to be the next episode. Let me do an episode of This Is Who I Am. When I got home and I dropped in with my guides and meditate before I do an episode, They were like, no, you need to share this episode. Stop avoiding it. So here we are, not avoiding it. We're showing up. I just need to tell the story. I don't know how the structures of my episodes are going to be, and maybe this is going to be how it is moving forward. In 2019, I was given a diagnosis of breast cancer. It was stage 1. I had been moving through a lot of things. As some context, in 2018, I had turned 35. What I've learned in certain ancient wisdom traditions that when you turn 35, karma begins to fall away, but that means you're going to feel it. You're going to experience it. It begins falling away, but you may not have any understanding as to why am I having this relationship? Why is this happening in my job? Or why is this area of my life feeling like it's just exploding on me? I didn't understand that at that time because I had just started going through a spiritual awakening. I had been running from the law with the bench warrant out for a DUI. That will be a totally different episode. I had started changing my life in 2018. I was getting into shape. I was eating better. I had stopped drinking and things in my life had started shifting. I felt really good about where I was in life. One night I had been working out, and you know when you get like sore in your armpits? I had gone like this. If you're watching this podcast, you can see me. I'm putting my thumb into my armpit and I brushed against my chest up here, which I call the higher heart, and there was a lump. And I was like, "Oh, damn." It was this feeling of like, this is cancer. I just knew it. And that also, I feel like, was the beginning of me being connected to my body and learning how to be connected to it. Okay, it's like you call your primary physician, you get in there for a blood test, you have them go test it, you go get a biopsy, you get a mammogram, you wait for the results. And I did all that. I recall I was sitting at my kitchen table, I was lacing up my sneakers to go out for a run, and I got a phone call. Usually I would have just ignored it, but something was like, you need to answer this. And it was January 11th. And if you know me, I am very into numerology, dates, numbers, things like that. They always represent something in my life. On January 11th, 2019, I had talked to a nurse practitioner. She'd given her apologies. Then it was the game of hurry up and wait. It was all these other tests. I don't have a family history. I'm adopted. So that was a added layer to the stress that I was like, oh my God, can we be done with this? That was the other part of it. I wasn't present. I wanted it to be done. I wanted someone to tell me what to do. I wanted to know exactly how I was going to feel. And I wanted to be done with it before it even started. And part of that was very much in my hindsight was the three-dimensional world of I don't want to be present for this. I'm not going to be here. Let me figure out all the other ways to avoid this, to numb this, to escape from this, if you will. I went in to meet with the oncologist, and the oncologist looked like the ex-husband. I had not done enough healing for that part of my life. I had a visceral reaction, and it was like, why is the universe doing this to me? I felt like I was being kicked while I was down. It was a time in my life where I became a shell of a person. Even though every chemotherapy session I went to, my sister was there or someone else was there. And my sister would pick me up for every appointment or someone else would. I was in the chair by like February something. That's the other thing that I think is so backwards about this medical system in the Western society, because they will drag their feet on things that will make you better, but they will put you right through when it comes to things like this. I have opinions about this, and I know so many people have opinions about the medical system in the United States specifically, that it needs a change. So through the entire time I was moving through breast cancer in 2019, I was also going to court order DUI classes, and I was showing up every week. I was also showing up to do community service at the library. I was shelving books. I had to do 80 hours of that. For the first time in this lifetime and other lifetimes, I was being required to take responsibility for myself and showing up, even though I didn't want to be there and I didn't want to do it. But I showed up, and it started to show me that you can do hard things. You're moving through breast cancer and you're going through court ordered DUI classes and you're going to shelve books and you're going to go into work every so often. You can do this. It was a very physical experience. And when I mean physical, I had so many side effects. I didn't advocate for myself when it came to my treatment plan. Again, I was in this place of just tell me what to do. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to be present. One of the things that they told me to do was hormone therapy. And hormone therapy essentially was putting my ovaries to sleep. At that time, I was 35 years old. Looking back, I now know that my period would have stopped no matter what because the body was in stress. I had these shots that I did. I also did this other kind of shot that was for the white blood cells. I had 4 different chemotherapy drugs. I lost my hair. It was this sleepwalking through it, if you will. I wasn't present. I isolated myself. And I'm putting these in quotes if you're not watching this. I was using cannabis to help with pain, but it was another way that I could legally numb my feelings because I was in court ordered DUI classes, so I wasn't drinking. I've had so much anger within me. I held so much anger, and I believe that is the reason why that I had the tumor, because it's up in the high heart, and in my own beliefs spiritually and energetically, that dis-ease and illness lands in the body because there's something, whether it's spiritually, emotionally, mentally, energetically, is out of balance. It's out of harmony with all the rest of you. And so this was my body saying, like, girl, you need to get your life together. You need to stop running from everything, all the anger, all the sadness, all the grief, the blame, the resentment. You need to move that out of your body. You need to change the way you think about yourself. You need to change the way you talk to yourself. You need to change the way in which you show up in this human experience, because you're here to do big things. And in order to do that, you need to move through this. And while I was going through my DUI classes, that's when I met my first spiritual mentor. She was the first mirror in my life. And I was 35, that was reflecting back to me, you need to let go of this anger. Why are you holding on to this? And really getting me to look at myself clearly for the first time, and the way I moved through the world, and whether it was shame or guilt or anger. I keep saying anger because there was a lot of anger that I had to alchemize and feel and release. She continued to teach me and give me all these different tools that I still use today. And I'm really grateful for her. Her practice is called Safe Journeys. And at the time, I didn't understand what was going on, but now I understand that it's part of my journey. It's part of me to be here and share this, that a lot of humans, and when I say this from a standpoint of being a starseed, a light worker. I am a dragon priestess. That when dis-ease happens, that is your opportunity to shift your consciousness. That is your opportunity to change your life, because your body is the last place that all of this disharmony, disconnection is asking you to come home to yourself, to remember that everything is connected. It's interesting when people talk about seeing people who are so physically healthy. That doesn't matter, because if you're physically healthy, and I say physically healthy, like you eat healthy, you're active, right? But the thing about that is, how do you talk to yourself? How do you think about yourself? Because that's all chemicals. So if you have chemicals that are negative, that's going to affect your body. We are electrical beings. When I had been moving through this, my spiritual mentor would continue to ask me, is this what you want? Because when she asked me that, that was when I had told her, oh, I'm having a double mastectomy and they're doing an implant replacement. And she stopped and she said, but what do you want? And I had never had someone in my life ask me, what do I want? And I didn't sit with it. I wasn't at that place yet to sit with it and be, they don't need to do that because it's up here. I'm not worried about it. The chemotherapy was rough. The double mastectomy was also rough because I was taking the oxy and I was using it to numb myself. I wasn't using it for the pain. And I felt very ashamed at that time in my life. I recall journal entries that this version of me right now, I would never talk to anyone the way that I talked to myself in these journal entries. And it connected for me that the way you talk to yourself, and that the manifestation, no matter what it is, it will land. I think it took a couple years for that to land. It was an eye opener, that feeling of shame and guilt that I had done this to myself, because I did do this to myself. Yes, do I believe that our food is not great and the plastics in our clothes and all that kind of stuff? Yes. But I also now understand how powerful our minds and our brains are, and that the chemicals, and if you are constantly talking down to yourself, that is going to land in your body some way, somehow. I had the implants put in. They looked great. They felt awful. They were so heavy. They were cold. They were so perky. Now, I would also like to say that if you are someone who has gotten some kind of plastic surgery to make yourself feel better, I support that. For me in my own journey, it was not something I wanted in my life because my first thought was if I have to replace these in 15 years, that means I'm going to have to go under surgery again. And there was also a thought that I would never be healthy if I had these implants in. I don't care how many studies are going to tell you that these implants are okay for your body. It is a foreign object in your body. But I put them in. At that time, I felt that no one would ever want to date me or love me or want to be with me if I didn't have boobs. It was that clear. We moved through everything, recovered from the surgery, and I was doing all my follow up stuff. And then I had stopped going to treatments, and I was like, we're not doing this anymore. We're good. And I went vegan. When I say vegan, I went unhealthy vegan, all manufactured foods. It was not a lot of veggies. Then COVID happened. 2020 was another time of me being isolated. That was asking me to examine who I was. But even then, I wasn't. I was avoiding everything that I needed to feel. I don't recall crying very often when I was moving through breast cancer. I didn't talk about it with anyone. It was, oh yeah, she's going through it, like whatever. That's like what it felt like. I didn't at that time have community or many friends who were supportive because they didn't know how to support me. I would never blame them. I didn't know how to ask for support. I didn't know how to ask someone to come over and hang out with me or can we do something. I didn't know how to do that. I thought I was better, but I was still pushing things away. In 2021, I decided to do acupuncture because I needed to get my moon cycle, my menstrual cycle back online. That's how Reiki found me. That can be another episode. I had become a Reiki level 1 practitioner and level 2 practitioner in 2021. 2022, I became a Reiki master. And in 2023, I found another lump in the exact same spot. It was like, girl, you didn't learn the lesson. And the lesson was to let go of all the anger that I've ever held for myself, for my ancestors, and to express my emotions. When it happened again, I knew, but I pushed it away. It was also Mercury retrograde. And as someone who loves astrology, I'm not in that place to be like, yeah, I'm going to go do this. Because at that point, I was so anti big pharma specifically and having to go and see the oncologist again. I waited and my tumor got about, if you're watching, it was like about this big. It looked like an angry tomato. If you've ever picked a tomato off the vine and you know how the vine is dark and it's red, that's literally what it looked like. I had sat my family down. I totally ruined one of their nights where they got together and like watched the show, but I knew I had to tell them I couldn't hold it in anymore. I told them that I would be leaving the family business and that I was going to take care of myself. That was a lot because I had been involved in that family business since I was a baby. My dad would take clients and I would just be there. It was right before the busy season started. I told them I love them, but I love me more and that I wouldn't be doing chemo. I was going to do everything holistically. And I knew my family was scared, but I'm the type of person that you can't convince me because I have to arrive into it in my own time. I went months with this tumor and it was so mad at me. And then finally in May, it finally landed. When I think of astrology, I'm a Gemini 6th house and Gemini is the twins. And sometimes you have to go through lessons twice. And the 6th house also represents your health. This was me being like, oh, damn, I've learned the lesson. I know what it is. I know what I need to do. The second time was so different. It was a spiritual experience. Both times with breast cancer was a spiritual experience because the second time, I'm so grateful and thankful for Queenie. And I told her what was happening. We did a couple energy sessions. She got the community together for me, created a healing schedule for my community to step up and give me sessions before and after a chemo session and before and after surgery. I believe it really helped because it was helping all the higher bodies to continue to be worked on as I took care of the physical body. I moved up to the house that my grandparents homesteaded. I was always up here when I was a grandkid. It's been a very healing space. My inner child loves it up here. For the first time in lifetimes and for my ancestors and for my family that I got to rest. I got to truly rest. And I'm surrounded by trees, and my neighbors are birds and deer and squirrels and chipmunks and rabbits. And I got to slow down. And that alone shifts your energy. Chemotherapy sessions and doctor visits were so different this time. I advocated for myself. The oncologist wanted to do 4 drugs. I said, we're doing 3. He wanted me to do Hormone therapy, I said no because my period's going to stop anyways. We don't need to do that again. And it got to this rhythm. This is where I developed my devotional practice for getting up every morning and meditating and chanting and dropping in with my guides and the dragons and drinking hot lemon water and stepping outside barefoot to the earth and getting sun on my face, along with a lot of other things that needed to shift. But those are those things that I continued to build during that. It was interesting because I would go to each treatment. I would call them upgrades, every upgrade, because to me, the second time was an upgrade. It was my cells being awakened, activated in a new way. Because when I said I believe things in a different way, I had star seeds, my star seed families, my galactic team come in and tell me that this is an upgrade for my physical body and that it is going to burn away old parts of you that no longer align. And it's physically going to do that because you are mentally, emotionally, energetically, spiritually, my light body, everything's shifting. So the physical body needed to. I would have to say chemotherapy, the first treatment, the first upgrade was rough, yes, because like let's be real, that's flowing through my body. All the other treatments, all the other upgrades, it wasn't anything like it was the first time. I also learned how to listen to my body, what it needs. Like I said, I was vegan, vegetarian going into it. And then at one point, all I would heard was chicken and rice, chicken and rice, chicken and rice. I finally got out of my own way and I went and ate chicken and rice. And as soon as I ate it, my body was like, girl, thank you. We need this protein. We need this nutrients. I really started tuning into intuitively eating and being like, okay, what is it that I need right now? Knowing that I really need to pour into my physical vessel as we're doing this. Whatever my body craved, I ate. It was interesting because my body craved really healthy foods. The first time it was not healthy foods. The second time I would also set the intention that when I got to that property where the treatment center was, the upgrade center was, my energy would be there to uplift others. I saw it real time because I would walk in and it'd be very quiet. I would have a conversation with someone at the desk and hear a little more chatter. There's a phlebotomist. She's so amazing, Linda. I'd always see her on a Wednesday because Wednesday she wore pink. I would go in there and we'd talk and we'd laugh. I'd see the shift in energy and people would start to talk more. I would go upstairs and I would sit and wait for the oncologist, same one, looks like the ex-husband. But this time around, I would always wear a mask and I would wear these brown sunglasses because I didn't need him to see my expression on my face and I didn't want him to see my eyes. That was something that shifted because it was energetically. That really made a difference for me. He knew every time he would see me that he would have to shift who he was because he wasn't just going to be able to talk at me like he did to everyone else. And so I felt that was part of me helping the collective to be, you got to shift how you talk to people. I would go in and sit in one of the chairs. I'd have a nurse and it would be great because I was a patient that was easy. They would come over and would always be talking about food. Like, what am I going to treat myself today after this? It was always great. We'd always laugh and we'd have these conversations. Once that would happen, the entire floor would shift the energy. People would start laughing and talking more. When I saw that happen, I was like, okay, I got to keep doing this. And I kept doing it. Me recognizing that it's, yeah, no one wants to be here. It effing sucks. No one should ever have to move through breast cancer or any type of cancer, or any type of disease. But if I'm going to be here, I want to help others in a way to lighten the energy, bring more laughter. I recognized it was because I was really tuning into my devotional practice. That's when I was really working closely with the dragons. And I also work with Green Tara, the Mother Buddha. It grounded me into the present moment. So I was present for every treatment, every conversation, and I was there. I used cannabis, but I use it as a medicine. I didn't vape. I didn't eat gummies. I used RSO, which is an oil that is pressed and it is very potent. And it was the thing that worked the best. It helped me feel really good. It helped my appetite. And I didn't feel like stupid high. Sometimes if you vape and do gummies, you can feel really stupid. At least that's my own personal experience. I was using it as a medicine. And I did use a chocolate bar when I got my surgery because I knew that they were going to take out the tumor. They were going to take out the implants. It was affecting my yoga practice. It was affecting my sleep. It was affecting my overall health. And I knew that I needed that to happen in order to feel the best version of myself. And it was the best decision I've ever made. Don't get me wrong, it has been a continuous learning how to love myself deeper as a woman who doesn't have boobs. My boobs were great. They were like perfect size for my body, letting go of something like that. And I know it's just a body part, but like until you've walked those shoes, you couldn't be so sure that you wouldn't grieve it yourself because it's a lot. And I also don't have a nipple on one side. Learning how to love my body again and loving it so deeply that for a long time I couldn't look at myself naked. Now it's like I walk around naked all the time. It's so different. It's because I've really learned how to love myself and my body and knowing that I am not my body as you shift your consciousness, that I'm not my body. I am a soul. I'm an extension of divine source energy in a physical vessel. And I've also learned that if someone's only going to want to be with me, when I say with me, date me or be with me because of my body, bye. I'm so much more than that. It's taken a long time to arrive into this mindset of knowing that I love my body. I love who I am. And yes, there are moments where I'm like, it would be really nice to, have some boobs to fill out this shirt. And I know they have like different kinds of like bras, but for me, that just doesn't feel natural. And for me, it's learning how to love myself even more. Some people might think this is way out there, but this is who I am. The second time, because I had waited so long, it was stage 3. And if you're watching, it was like a sliver to like stage 4. And I laugh because I'm like, my guides would never let that happen. And my higher self would never let that happen. And here we are. If that ain't like trust and surrender. So radiation was thrown on the table. And I was very adamant about not doing radiation. I was like, I'm not doing it. Just give me the information. And it's funny because as soon as I got in my car after the appointment, I shut the door. My ancestors were just there. You know, when you see movies where people teleport into it? Yeah, my ancestors just appeared and they were like, you're doing this. And they were like, you need to do this because it's part of your story. It's part of your journey. If you're going to help people with this and you're going to do what you came here to do, this is part of your story. So we need you to do it. And I said, okay. And I didn't push back because when my ancestors come in like that and say those things, they know things that I don't know. They see things that I don't know. So I trusted that. And then it was great because it's actually like my radiologist, the radiology team was so amazing. Everyone was so amazing. And not to say that the oncology team wasn't, but the radiologist and the team, they were a different energy. To me, they were more like star seeds. January 2024 is when my radiation appointments were going to start. But in Oregon, we had a snowstorm and I live up on a hill and I do not drive in the snow. I have 4-wheel drive. If I had to, I would. We pushed it to a Saturday. We were going to do it, keep you on schedule. And so I drove down and I was freaking gripping on my steering wheel the entire time. I made it there. I drove slow and I got into the side door. It was nice because it was just, there was no one there but me and the radiation techs, which was really nice to like start that. I used the restroom and I looked down on the floor and there was one single star confetti. And I was just like, oh my God, star seeds are here. That was like the first thing that just popped into my mind. I got myself changed and I went and laid on the table. Even the technology, anything lasers to me is a starseed technology. How are we using it? What is your reality for this? I laid on the table and like when you do radiation, they close you in there. It's like a bunker. As soon as they closed the doors, the room filled with star seeds. My human mind was like, is this really happening right now? Are all of you really in here right now? And I was trying to stay calm because I was going to get radiation. But then I also had all these star seeds literally filling the room. And this is what they told me. Radiation for humans is an upgrade to the system if they are tuned into that energy and to that frequency. And if they are, it is going to shift their reality, shift their physical vessel, shift their cells and their DNA because they are viewing it from a place of higher consciousness versus a place of fear. When that happened, I was just like, oh, dang. I don't even know what's going to happen anymore. Every session was like 10 or 15 minutes. It was real quick. I sat in my car after that and I recorded a video because I was like, oh my God, all these star seeds came in. They told me this is technology that humans don't really understand yet. I'm here to share this in that way so that if you are someone that is going to be moving through any kind of cancer treatment specifically, they told me that it's shifting the mindset is that your body's going to get an upgrade. And if you take that upgrade and you see that as an upgrade and you change the way in which you view it and it's your consciousness, because if you're really tuning into, and I'm using breast cancer specifically, like dis-ease, that if you're tuning into what is your body trying to communicate with you, because your body will always tell you what's out of balance. Always. Because it's the densest of all the bodies. So something in the higher realm, something in the lighter bodies is coming down because maybe you haven't felt anger and grief from, I mean, for me, it's been lifetimes, but maybe it's like years ago about a breakup or something. You're like, no, we're fine, things like that. When you can shift your consciousness to understand that this is happening for your highest good because your body's finally like, this isn't working anymore. It's time to make a change. And instead of pushing it away, that you take ownership and you have a sense of agency in your life and being like, okay, wait a second, how can I do this different? What am I not changing in my life that is showing me that I am constantly living in fear, or that I'm in a constant state of fight or flight because cortisol is just shooting through my body. And at that point, the baseline is stressed out all the time. Or that I was drinking, doing drugs. I had addictions to like all kinds of things because I was trying to fill a void that would never be filled unless I looked at myself and I went into the void. When I mean the void, I mean into your shadows, into the darkest parts of your soul, the things that you have pushed away that you feel ashamed of, angry about, resentful, you blame, you feel guilty about, to let all that go, because the longer you hold it, the more of that toxic, negative, low frequency energy is going to fill your body, and your body will tell you that it's time to make a change. When you think about ancient wisdom traditions, we're in this physical realm. We are a soul having a physical experience. What breast cancer taught me is that our feelings and emotions are a superpower. I still thank my spiritual mentor for showing me that you have a lot of anger. And she had even told me, and I recall this, I worry that if you don't let go of that anger, that the breast cancer is going to come back. It did, because I hadn't let go of the anger. And so this was my opportunity to let go of the anger, to be like, what am I angry about? And the moments that I was angry, and I like to share this practice with people. Some people think it's freaking like crazy to do, but like it works. Don't knock it till you try it. When there were moments of I didn't want to go to the treatment center, or I didn't want to go down for a shot, or I didn't want to have a radiation appointment, when I would drive down the hill, I would roll down all my windows because it was like summertime. I would scream at the top of my lungs from like my diaphragm, like really deep down. And it was such a primal scream. And as soon as I did that, I was fine. I still do that if there are moments that I don't know what this is. I need to get it out, and I'd let it out. Same with crying, because I've noticed if I don't cry for a week or two, then I probably need to cry about something. It's just learning. I do want to say that things like this, you're not meant to do alone. And that was the other shift for me, is that I recognized that I could not do this alone the second time. Humans are meant to be in connection. Everything is connected. And so when I learned that, and the Reiki community that I have, and the people who supported me, family and friends, it completely changed it. And that, yeah, there were rough days. Like I said, the chemotherapy wasn't bad like the first time, but radiation, oof, that pushed me to my edges physically. You go for 5 days in a row, 3 weeks. I'd have the weekends off, quote unquote. And it'd just be 10 to 15 minutes, but it would literally zap the energy out of you. But I knew that it was doing it for my best and highest good, even though at that moment I didn't understand it. It's interesting to be able to feel far enough away from that now, because I had to really work with myself and learn that eventually this would be something that I shared. And there are some people who get it. and I've shared with, but not very many people. I wasn't going to rush sharing this because it needed to be when I was in a place that I'm far enough removed and in a place that knowing there are going to be people that think I'm effing crazy or that they're going to be like, what are you talking about? Like, that's not what it is. And that's okay. Because I've also been really working on knowing that if I don't have haters, if I don't have people that are disagreeing with me, then I'm not doing the thing. I want to be in the arena. I'm not about to be like on the sidelines. I want to be in the arena. I also feel that it is going to awaken some people because I know as someone who now works in functional medicine, and functional medicine is gut health, hormone health, really getting your physical vessel healthy. We don't work with insurance because we prevent ease, which that could be a whole nother episode. But it's been this shift of why I do this, why I'm with that company, because I want to see a world where people can get out of bed without feeling any pain. People who are parents can get on the floor with their kids, right? I want a world that people feel good every day. That's part of why I'm here because I wake up every day feeling good. I'm 42 and I feel better than when I was 22 by a long shot. And so I hope that if you know someone who's moving through dis-ease or illness, that they can look at it from a different perspective. But I also know that not everyone's ready for this. It takes a lot to want to change, period. And when it comes to your health, that's a bigger beast because everything that I have created in my life, I had to go and look for answers. N equals one. I am the experiment. I was just testing things on myself, being like, okay, does this work over here? Knowing that no one's formula was going to help me completely unless it's telling me to drink more water because everyone needs more water. It's been this journey of experimenting and coming to an understanding that this is part of my divine mission is to help people not have to move through cancer because it really does matter with your emotions. And if you're watching this, I keep putting my hand above my head because it's your emotional body, your mental body, your energetic body, your spiritual body, your light body. There's so much we don't see with our physical human eye. There's neuroscience behind all that, but I'm not going to get into it. I'm going to close this episode with if you find yourself constantly escaping your life with binging TV or drinking out every night, or maybe you're drinking at home every night, or maybe you are getting so stoned, you're just taking huge bong rips when you get home, or you're dabbing, or that you are always scrolling on your phone, that eventually if you continue with that stress on your body that it's going to show up in a certain way. And my hope for this collective as we are shifting in this great shift right now, I hope you find something that will help you feel less alone, that you can do hard things, and that your health is your wealth. Because if you're not healthy, how are you going to work? How are you going to be with your family? How are you going to go on those trips? How are you going to play with those grandkids? How are you going to play with your dogs? How are you going to just go grocery shopping? How are you going to be able to enjoy what you've created in your life? And like I said, I know firsthand what it's like to feel so resistant to changing your life. But I promise you, if you find community, if you reach out to me, that I'll do what I can to help you with resources. You came here to live a life of abundance. You are an extension of divine source energy. You're here to thrive, not survive. I also encourage you to ask yourself if you are constantly searching for things outside of you to make you feel better. That's what I was doing. And that's what I meant when, that you're constantly escaping or numbing or avoiding. I used to be a big avoider. There are still some things I avoid. Like I need to clean out my fridge. I've been avoiding that. You don't need to be perfect to start healing for yourself. I am incredibly grateful and thankful for your time, your presence, your energy, and stopping by my corner of the universe. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you in the next one.